Caitlin Clark just made a deal that ended the jobs of players she never even played against.
But even before she makes her pro debut, she has a major Nike deal on the line.
Right now, NBC bosses are in their offices crossing names off contracts. Those names belong to older players who spent 2 years trying to hurt Caitlin's reputation. These players thought no one could fire them. They were wrong. Caitlin isn't getting revenge herself. The people who pay everyone are doing it for her. They've decided the older players aren't worth keeping anymore. While these veteran players sit at home arguing about money, Caitlin is sitting courtside at NBA games, meeting basketball legends and becoming the famous face they wish would disappear. The power change happened so quickly that most fans didn't even notice. But the numbers prove it's real, and so do all the empty seats where 10-year pros used to sit. This isn't just about basketball now. This is about staying alive in the league. The players who tried to keep Caitlin out are now locked outside themselves. Stay with us. We're explaining how karma became a business plan. The golden goose nobody wanted. When Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA draft in April 2024, something weird happened. The league got exactly what it needed, but didn't know what to do with it. Her first game with the Indiana Fever brought 2.4 million viewers. But those numbers only tell half the story. The Indiana Fever had been one of the worst teams for years. Only about 4,000 fans came to their home games, even though their arena holds 17,000 people. Tickets were super cheap because nobody wanted them. Then Caitlin got drafted and everything changed overnight. Season ticket sales jumped 300% in just 1 week.
And games of the upcoming WNBA season and tickets for the Wings are going fast.
Road teams started moving Fever games to bigger stadiums because their regular arenas were too small for all the fans who wanted to come. Here's where it gets crazy. The veteran players saw those numbers too. They saw sold-out arenas. They saw merchandise selling like crazy. They even saw their own Instagram followers going up just because Caitlin was in their league. But instead of saying thank you, they told her to stop. Diana Taurasi went on a podcast before the season even started and said rookies need to know their place. She talked about how Caitlin would struggle against professional defenders, how college basketball is different, and how being famous doesn't mean you'll succeed. It sounded like advice, but it felt like a threat. Other veterans joined in. They started doing interviews where they barely said Caitlin's name, like saying it would make her more powerful. Then the game started. Kennedy Carter hit Caitlin with her shoulder so hard during a game that it became national news. The hit was so obvious and on purpose that even people who don't watch basketball saw the video. Angel Reese celebrated it. She clapped on the sideline like Carter had just won a championship. The message was clear. This rookie doesn't belong here. The cheap shots kept coming. Hard fouls that referees barely called. Rough blocks that happened away from the ball. Players talking trash in ways that went from competition to mean. Social media posts insulting her. Podcast interviews where veterans complained about all the attention Caitlin was getting. Some players even said the media was racist for covering Caitlin more than black players who had been in the league for years. The fans noticed. They started asking a simple question. Why are these players mad that someone brought them attention? Because the math told the truth. Before Caitlin, WNBA games had around 400,000 viewers on a good night.
With new TV viewership numbers, it says the season that began on May 14th.
With new TV viewership numbers from the season that began on May 14th, regular season games sometimes had less than 200,000 viewers. Some games on weekday afternoons barely got 100,000 people watching. Teams were playing in half-empty arenas. Players were flying on regular planes because the league couldn't afford private jets. Now those same arenas were packed. Games were selling out weeks before they happened. Ticket prices went up 3 times higher. Merchandise sales broke every record the league ever had. TV networks were actually fighting over who could show WNBA games instead of treating them like backup content, and the veterans were complaining about it. They compared social media numbers. They looked at jersey sales. Every single number showed the same thing. Caitlin Clark was bringing money and attention the WNBA had never seen before. Yet the players who should have been thanking her were trying to hurt her. NBC was watching all of this happen. Peacock was watching. The team owners were definitely watching, and they were taking notes. They saw which players welcomed the attention and which ones fought against it. They saw who was good for business and who was causing problems. Those notes would matter very soon. The business decision that changed everything. February 2025, NBC announces a huge media rights deal with both the NBA and WNBA. This deal was worth billions of dollars. The WNBA part alone was the biggest contract in league history. Everyone expected NBC to start promoting the league's veterans, the champions, the legends who built the foundation. Instead, they chose Caitlin Clark, not for WNBA coverage, but NBA coverage. They put her on screen with Vince Carter and Carmelo Anthony during pregame shows. She's breaking down plays by LeBron James and Steph Curry. Meanwhile, Breanna Stewart and Diana Taurasi are nowhere to be seen in NBC's ads. Think about how crazy that decision really was. NBC just spent billions of dollars on WNBA rights. They could have promoted any player they wanted. They could have built a whole show around the league's history. They could have featured the four-time champions and Olympic gold medalists.
Bronze medalists at Paris 2024.
The players who stuck with the league when it was losing money every year. Instead, they gave the biggest platform to a rookie who had played exactly one season. The veterans were furious. Sources close to the Players Association said some players felt betrayed. They had been loyal to the WNBA for decades. They played through seasons when arenas were empty. They promoted the league when nobody cared. They flew on regular planes while NBA players had private jets. And now NBC was acting like none of that history mattered. But NBC executives weren't thinking about loyalty. They were thinking about money, and the numbers told a story that was impossible to ignore. Peacock started rolling out their WNBA marketing campaigns.
So I'm the #1 fan, but I'm the #1 salesperson for the WNBA. I want to make sure that people understand who we are.
Every poster featured Caitlin. Every commercial highlighted Caitlin. The other players became background noise in their own league's ads. This wasn't an accident. They tested different ads with casual sports fans. The results were bad for the veterans. When they showed posters with Diana Taurasi or Breanna Stewart, people barely reacted. When they showed Caitlin Clark, engagement went through the roof. The casual fans knew who she was. They remembered her college games. They wanted to see what she would do next. NBC even tested social media ads. Posts with Caitlin got 5 times more engagement than posts with any other WNBA player. Comments, shares, likes, saves, every single number favored Caitlin. The data was so one-sided that the marketing department stopped testing other players altogether. The executives looked at the data. When Caitlin played, viewership spiked. When she didn't, it dropped. Her jersey sales outsold every other WNBA player combined.
Basketball writer Dick Weiss posted that more Caitlin Clark Indiana Fever jerseys were sold in one day.
The Indiana Fever went from having the worst attendance to selling out every home game. Road games saw twice as many fans when teams said Caitlin would play. But the numbers got even crazier when you dug deeper. NBC tracked how many people watched each minute of games. They found that when Caitlin sat on the bench, viewers switched channels or turned off the game. They weren't watching WNBA basketball. They were watching Caitlin Clark play basketball. This created a big problem for the league's traditional power structure. The WNBA had always worked on the idea that the team mattered more than individual stars. Teams shared money. Marketing budgets got spread across the league. Every player was supposed to be part of the same movement, but NBC's data proved that model was dead. Streaming numbers on Peacock told the same story. Games with Caitlin averaged 500,000 streams. Games without her averaged 80,000. That's not a small difference. That's the difference between making money and losing money. That's the difference between keeping your job and getting fired. NBC made a choice. They bet everything on Caitlin. The veterans thought their championships gave them power. But power in professional sports doesn't come from the past. It comes from what you can sell today. And today, NBC only wanted to sell one product. When the money stopped flowing, right now, the WNBA Players Association is fighting with team owners. The union wants 30% of the revenue. They want higher salaries. They want better travel conditions. These demands aren't crazy. Other professional leagues give their players way more. But here's the problem. The veterans leading this fight don't have the power they think they have. The owners are looking at the numbers. The WNBA lost money for 25 years straight. The league only survived because the NBA kept writing checks to keep it alive. Every single season from 1997 to 2023 lost money. Teams were losing cash fast. The average WNBA team lost millions per year. The only reason the league still existed was because the NBA treated it like a charity project. Then Caitlyn showed up and suddenly the WNBA had a real chance to make money. Sponsorships increased by 40% in one season. Merchandise sales broke records. TV ratings went up everywhere. The Indiana Fever went from losing $2 million a year to possibly making a profit for the first time ever.
Officially a member of the Indiana Fever after has decorated a collegiate career.
The owners know where that money came from. It didn't come from the veterans. It came from the rookie they tried to destroy. Now, here's where the labor fight gets interesting. The Players Association is demanding guaranteed money. They want the owners to promise higher base salaries no matter how much money comes in. They want private jets for every team. They want better hotels. They want marketing budgets that treat them like NBA stars. The owners are sitting in these meetings, listening to these demands, and doing math in their heads. A 10-year veteran making $200,000 brings in maybe $50,000 in ticket sales and merchandise for her team. Caitlin Clark brings in millions. The math doesn't work. Why would owners pay more money to players who don't bring in revenue? So when the Players Association threatens to strike, the owners aren't scared. They have a backup plan. They can run a season with replacement players if they need to. They have Caitlin Clark under contract. They have Paige Bueckers about to enter the draft. They have a whole new generation of college stars who would love to play professionally. The threat of replacement players used to be empty. Who would watch a WNBA season without the league's stars? But that was before Caitlyn. Now the owners know that as long as they have her, people will watch. They could fill rosters with Division II college players, and as long as Caitlyn is on the court, fans will show up.
Clark, another long three! She's back!
The veterans thought they had all the power. They thought the league needed them, but the league doesn't need them anymore. It needs Caitlyn, and she's already getting paid by NBC whether the WNBA season happens or not. This completely changes who has the power. In most labor fights, players have leverage because without them, there's no product to sell. But the WNBA product isn't the whole league anymore. It's one person, and that one person isn't part of the union fight. She's sitting courtside at Lakers games getting paid by NBC, whether the WNBA plays or not. The veterans are starting to understand this. Some players have reportedly told union leaders to stop threatening to strike. They're seeing that they're negotiating from a weak position, not a strong one. They're realizing that if they force the owners to choose between paying them more money or building a league around young talent, the owners will pick the young talent every time. This is when the veterans started to realize what they had done. They built a wall to keep Caitlyn out, but instead they trapped themselves inside. They gave the owners the perfect excuse to rebuild without them. And now they're stuck in a negotiation they can't win. Corporate America picks a side Nike had a decision to make. They sponsor several WNBA veterans. They also have Caitlin Clark under a huge endorsement deal. Super Bowl 60 was coming up.
Super Bowl 60, it will mark the culmination of two dramatic turnaround seasons.
Nike had the budget to run a commercial during the game. The question was, who should they feature? They chose nobody. Nike told Adweek they wouldn't run a Super Bowl commercial this year. No Caitlin Clark ad, no veteran player features, nothing. This seemed weird until you understood what was happening behind the scenes. Nike didn't want to be in the middle of a war. If they featured Caitlyn, the veterans and their supporters would attack them on social media. If they featured the veterans, they'd be promoting players with lower popularity and worse public image. So they pulled out completely. Other brands didn't have the same problem. State Farm, Gatorade, and Wilson all doubled down on Caitlyn. Her signature shoe line with Nike is set to drop soon, and pre-orders are already breaking records. Meanwhile, veteran players are seeing their endorsement deals dry up. The corporate world is ruthless. They don't care about legacy or feelings. They care about return on investment. When Caitlyn posts on Instagram, she gets millions of interactions. When veterans post, they get thousands. That difference matters to brands. Peacock subscriptions went up 35% during the WNBA season. NBC executives traced the increase directly to Caitlin Clark's games being on the platform. That's real money. That's data you can't argue with. The veterans wanted respect. Corporate America gave them a pink slip instead. The fallout nobody saw coming. March 2025. Social media is going crazy. The WNBA season might not happen because of the labor dispute. Fans are picking sides. But here's what's really happening behind the scenes. Team owners are having private meetings. They're talking about a scenario nobody wants to say out loud. What if they just started over?
Caitlin Clark all night tonight.
Are you talking about my high school experience? Clark Connects!
The young one here.
And let the veterans walk away. It sounds extreme until you look at the money. A 10-year veteran making $200,000 a season brings in maybe $50,000 worth of ticket sales and merchandise. Caitlin Clark brings in millions. The math isn't even close. NBC already made its choice clear. They gave Caitlin a platform completely separate from the WNBA. She's on NBA broadcasts now. She's building her brand outside the league that tried to tear her down. If the WNBA season gets canceled,
earlier in the season last year, there was a lot of chatter around it. But as I said, then when we got into the playoffs, people were hardly talking about it. So I think people love the modern NBA.
Caitlin still wins. She's still on TV. She's still getting paid. She's still relevant. The veterans don't have that safety net. If the season gets canceled, they disappear. No games means no exposure. No exposure means no endorsements. No endorsements means no income outside their player salary. And if the owners decide to move on without them, there's no backup plan. Some veterans are starting to realize this. Quiet conversations are happening. Some players are breaking from the union. They're looking at what happened and thinking, maybe they made a mistake. Maybe they should have welcomed Caitlin instead of fighting her. But it might be too late for regrets. What this means for basketball, this story is bigger than one league or one player. What's happening in the WNBA right now will change how professional sports work. For the first time, we're seeing a league completely rebuild around a single athlete. The NBA has superstars, but it doesn't depend on just one person. The WNBA does now. Everything revolves around Caitlin Clark. The schedule gets built around her games. The marketing focuses on her. The television contracts prioritize her. This creates a dangerous situation. What if she gets injured? What if she decides to retire early?
This creates a dangerous situation. What if she gets injured? What if she decides to retire early?
Caitlin Clark, who has yet floor. Man, that left foot. That looks very painful.
What if she wants to play overseas? The league has put all its money on one player. And if that player disappears, the whole thing might collapse. But the owners didn't have a choice. The alternative was going back to empty arenas and 200,000 viewers. They chose survival over safety. The veterans are learning a hard lesson about professional sports. It doesn't matter how many championships you won. It doesn't matter how long you've been in the league. The only thing that matters is what you bring right now. And right now, they're not bringing what Caitlin brings. This is going to change how future WNBA players act. Young players coming into the league are watching what happened. They're seeing that talent matters, but being marketable matters more. They're seeing that you can't just be good at basketball anymore. You have to be good at basketball and good for business. The game is changing. The veterans tried to stop it. They failed. 2 years ago, Caitlin Clark was just a college player with a deadly three-point shot. Today, she's the reason veterans are losing their jobs. NBC didn't make this decision because they're cruel. They made it because the numbers forced them to. When one player brings more value than an entire generation of veterans combined, the choice becomes obvious. The veterans had their chance. They could have lifted Caitlin up and risen with her. Instead, they tried to tear her down and buried themselves. Now they're sitting at home while she sits courtside at NBA games. The owners aren't coming back to save them. The networks aren't changing their minds. The business has moved on. This is what happens when you fight against your own success. The league doesn't belong to the veterans anymore. It belongs to the girl from Iowa whom they couldn't break.